Good night. Wow, it is after 10 o'clock. I was not planning on doing it this late. But as I mentioned the other day, I had some issues with my car to take care of, and thankfully most of that's been taken care of. I just haven't done the actual work on my car yet. I've got the parts, thankfully. But we are getting so near to the death, resurrection, and obviously the horrible things that are to come for Christ, within the flogging, within the way that he's treated at the temple, the way that he is betrayed by Judas with a kiss of all things, and we are focusing today on his prayer. And one of the things that, for me, when looking at this, is very important, because I've always considered, the way that I pray, I could always do better in my own prayer life or whatever. I think that's just with everything that I do. Everything I could do, I could do. Everything I do, I could do better. But within this passage, I have to acknowledge the importance of how it was Peter, James, and John are within this time frame, because of the prayer that Christ does, and then goes back, and then they're asleep, and he's like, just pray while I'm doing my thing, while I'm praying, so that you do not fall into temptation. The flesh is weak, and the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. I'll read that in a moment. But with all that being said, this was the best picture that I could find to really emphasize the hardship, the pain that Christ was going through because of the coming struggle that he was going to be having to go through, like I mentioned a moment ago. This gospel does not go into as many details as the other gospels, as Matthew does with the praying, like, for a little bit more specific, with his followers, and other things, and with the fact that Mark overall is one of the shorter gospels, but it does touch on so many important aspects to the ministry, and to the humanness of Christ, but also the divinity of Christ in so many ways. And let's just get into that. So, beginning in verse 34, chapter 14, then they came to a place named Gethsemane, and he told his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter, James, and John with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here and stay awake." That was the first time that he instructs them to stay awake. He went a little further, fell to the ground, and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will." Then he came and found them sleeping. He said to Peter, which I find interesting, because before doing this recording, I did a reading of this, and just kind of looking at the very important aspects to each part of this passage, and the fact that he says to Peter, not just Peter, James, and John, it's specifically Peter. And I find that interesting that the author, Mark, states that very specific notion. He says, "Simon, are you sleeping? Couldn't you stay awake 1 hour? Now I'm gonna stop there one just to point out one thing. Most people that I know, I'm not putting out any names or anything like that. Most Christians, most Baptists, including myself, praying for an hour is not what we do. I know many people who go and pray and kind of like get as much as you can done, like in a short amount of time, so you can go and do what you got to do. And I definitely, in many ways, I have felt rushed while I've prayed because I could tell there are people that were like getting antsy. I've had that in back in the day when I was a Sunday school teacher from my home church back in Killeen, and even when I would sometimes teach on Wednesdays or Sunday nights, and that was a struggle. And so, um, but for praying an hour, I think we need to be sincere about it, but also be um more willing to do something in that case. But continuing there, in verse 38, stay awake and pray so that you won't enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Once again, he went away and prayed, saying the same thing. So this is the second prayer that he does, but it's just repeating the same thing. So I guess Mark did not feel the need to repeat it, which in some ways maybe he should have. We don't know. And again, he came and found them sleeping because they could not keep their eyes open, which again is very interesting how they couldn't keep their eyes open. And I'm not like kind of putting my own little spin or my beliefs into what was happening with the disciples. But I find it interesting that during a very important aspect to um, the will of God coming with the crucifixion and everything, and the fact that recently, prior to this, he told them all that they would all fall away. If they would have stayed awake, if they would have just kept their eyes open, if they would have begun praying, would they have been able to? Would they have been willing to stand with him? Um, we'll never know. But that is just a thought that I have with that. With us as believers, when we are tempted to just go to sleep or whatever, but we are willing to take the time and actually I give it to God. For instance, I was actually getting very tired tonight. It's been a long day and everything, but I said, no, I'm going to do this recording, do this um, study. And it is obviously for you to watch. And I know it hasn't always been watched because I don't post every day on social media that people will always see the posts that I make, but that's okay because I know that these videos will be seen. And so, there is that. And but continuing there, I got a little bit more to go. So they did not know what to say to him, which I find important there. And then it continues from there. Then he came a third time, so after the third time praying, and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Enough. The time has come. See, the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's go. See, my betrayer is near. And so, with all of this being said, I think it's very clear on so many just things that, like, we as humans, we are so weak. The flesh is so weak. But I gotta say, I wonder if I can. Uh, I can't fix that. But I'm trying to clear it out so I could show. But you know, the disciple is down here, praying, and he's on his face, like he's face down on the ground, and he's just praying to God, and he's just giving it all that he has. And I think it's important to really acknowledge that because one of my favorite movies, Passion of the Christ, is one of the best examples of this because the condition, I guess it is a condition where you're so beyond stress that you actually begin to sweat blood. And it's one of those things where the one of the other gospels mentioned that, and we know this because it's something that is talked about a lot. But then there's the fact that he is how did he word it? I am deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here and stay awake. So to the point of death, that is so crazy to think about. Like it's not hard to think about, but it's crazy to think about, really. And so, especially since he's fully God and fully man, you know, being the Son of God, he knows what is to come. He knows what needs to come. He knew what he had to do, but at the same time, um, the human part of him was was struggling with the coming steps. So obviously, I could go deeper into that, but I feel like I have said the important aspects of what needed to be said. Now, I do have a few things that I need to um, point out again. Obviously, tomorrow, Wednesday, the 22nd, we have no Wednesday night this week, but with Thanksgiving being in 2 days, I am hoping that everyone has a good break, that everyone has a good Thanksgiving, whether you guys have already left or if you guys leave tomorrow. I hope for safe travels. I hope for just an amazing week, amazing few days with your family, friends, whatever you guys end up doing. Uh, I'm trying to get a few things with D now taken care of. The date has changed from the newsletter that I have put out because I thought it was going to be that weekend, but uh, I already talked to Miss Rachel and Miss Amanda before about doing D-Now with another church, and so that is what we'll be doing, and I will make that announcement on Sunday as well, and I will have more information about it in the coming week or so. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but other than that, oh, actually, there is something with how we've been studying mere Christianity and how we've been studying Genesis. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently in the weeks ahead as I take the time. We have been just going through the book of Genesis, but I'm thinking that we might need to go through a more specific study so that we can actually have a little bit more of a discussion that if people don't know fully what to say, or if there's questions or whatever is needed, we can go a little bit deeper. I haven't been um doing that in the ways that I feel has been beneficial to the youth and to everyone else. So that's the plan, uh, and that is all I have. But I hope, like I said, that everyone has a fantastic Thanksgiving, and I'll continue to say that throughout each of these videos. But I will see you guys